Well, I made an approach to the club back on the 19th of August now, 2015, about a potential purchase of the club. I think a lot of it is made about the words of investment purchase. I wouldn't mind explaining that. The issue now is, particularly with the latest television deal, that the financial power of clubs in the Premier League and those being relegated into the Championship is huge. So any deal has to be structured that there is an investment in the club, if that's the right phraseology, in order to make sure that you're increasing the revenue base of the club, because that's got very important implications for financial fair play. And then there is the purchase. But I think if I've actually written to the owner of the club, which is what I did on the 19th of August, and said that I'm prepared to come over to Brussels to talk to you about this potential investment, I think that I'm not going to do that for £300 billboard. I'm going to do that because I've got a serious investment proposal to discuss with him. So I think some of the things that are being said about, it could have been about, you know, buying a new lamp for the club or a billboard or something like that, is way off the mark. And of course what subsequently happened is I contacted the owner again in January and said, look, the party is still keen, and I think there always will be interest because it's a London-based football club. I think one of the things that's coming out, I think there's perhaps a little bit of a misunderstanding about football fans in this country generally. Football fans do own the club. You know, it isn't like going to restaurants or cinemas or anything like that. They have an emotional attachment. It's their club. You know, they don't see themselves as customers, they see themselves as fans. And you cannot break into that emotional attachment. They often say that first game you ever get taken to becomes the club that you actually support. And that's so true. And I think once people feel that's under threat, whether it's at Leeds United or whether it's at Charlton or wherever else, then you have a very difficult job in persuading those fans to get behind the team, because the whole thing becomes a sideshow, and it's disruptive to the club. What you want is, you want a stable club. You know, we go back to having the manager that's there for a period of time. You go back to there being a good feeling around the training ground, that fans are coming there with a smile on their face and thinking about only one thing, which is cheering their team to victory. You start to eat into that and it all starts to become disruptive and protests and all the like. And it's not good for the club generally. It doesn't help the situation. And that's why this position has got to be resolved sooner rather than later. Well, I don't think they're only protesting just because the investors are around. The answer to your question is yes, the investor has an interest in a London club. And I think I made that clear from the start. Because it's, you know, as I say, business convenience reasons, and because it's not that long ago Charlton were a Premier League club. And I think he's bought into the proposition put to him that there is room for a big club, south of the River Thames. And I've been consistent even in the time I was at Charlton. I think that, you know, Charlton can be that club. And I think the fact it has a recent Premier League history means that people that are overseas looking at it regard Charlton as a Premier League club, because that's how they've seen it over the last 2 decades. So there's definitely interest there, probably outside of, you know, the investor that I represent as well. But, you know, I have to accept that at the end of the day, if nobody wants a coffee and just wants to hear a basic outline of what the proposal is, and I stress again that the investment part in the club is important, because that income that comes in from new sponsorship deals and the like is what helps you to deal with the financial fair play rules. And the money that some of these clubs are getting from the Premier League, particularly in parachute money, clubs like Villa that may well come down into this league will have far more firepower than the Charlton are not getting that. So you've got to be creative and think of ways that you can make Charlton competitive again in the Championship. So yes, they're around. Yes, they'd be prepared to meet, but I accept that, you know, a meeting is not wanted. Well, that's the frustration in not being able to sit down and have the conversation. You know, I don't think it'd be appropriate to throw figures out here. From the figures we've discussed, I'd like to think that, you know, it would be a good deal for the owner and it would be a good deal for the football club. I'm not going to get involved in this because I want to buy 2 match day advertising boards around the pitch. That's not what I'm about. You know, I care about the club, and I think it's, as I said to you before, I do believe it's got the potential to be that big club south of the River Thames. But with the deal the way it's going, a Premier League deal that's gone from 5 billion to 8 billion, there is don't know whether urgency is the right word, but there is a need to get, the club back on track, and joining in that party that's at the very top of the English pyramid, because the longer this goes on, it's going to be harder and harder for clubs like Charlton and many more in the Championship to compete with the sort of money that's going to be coming down into that league from above. Listen, I mean, anybody that cares passionately like that and are doing the things that they're doing, you have to admire, because when fans have watched a game, for example, and they come round the back of the stand and they're prepared to stand there for an hour, I mean, that tells to me that they're genuine and passionate about their football club, and that comes out loud and clear. But at the end of the day, we all have to accept, anybody that owns a football club in this country, whether it's Cellino at Leeds or whether it's Roland du Châtelet at Charlton, if they don't want to sell, they don't want to sell. And that certainly is the message coming out. Obviously, I'd hope that would have changed, but at the current time, it looks as though it's not going to.